Hi, so this video is about why some star traders and fund managers may not quite be what they seem. And for the fuller story on this, in the description, I've put a link to my Substack newsletter, and I wrote this as a newsletter. So for the full story about what the background to this particular topic, please click on that link and also subscribe to my newsletter to get regular updates. But you'll see people on the television, so-called star traders. People build a name for themselves, and I'm going to relate this back to something that happened in my career. So I was at a major investment bank in London, and we had just hired, or the bank had just hired, some star traders from arguably the biggest trading desk at the time. From a very large trading house. They'd worked alongside some of the biggest names in trading. So this was a major coup for the bank. These people came obviously on large money packages, and a friend of mine within the bank went actually to work with them in their little room. They had their own little prop room, and he went to work with them for a while. And this sort of story relates back to a conversation I had with him over lunch, and an expression that he said to me that has always stayed in my head. And I think this is something to always bear in mind when you're seeing people with big reputations, and you see them particularly on the television and promoting themselves nowadays on social media as well. So we were discussing the fact that these traders actually weren't doing so well. They were losing money. And I should say that subsequently they lasted about a year or so at the bank, and then they'd lost too much money and they were let go. And as we were sort of discussing how they were doing, and myself and this particular guy were basically had been doing a lot better, but we didn't have reputations anywhere near where these guys had, whether it was within our bank or externally, even though on a P&L basis we were significantly outperforming them and doing more and raising the reputation of our bank to a much higher degree than these guys were. And he came up with a phrase, as I said, that I've never forgotten. And he looked at me and said, "Gary," he said, "we're playing the wrong game." He said, "These guys are trading their careers. We're trading the markets." And, I just sort of sat there over lunch and thought about it. And, and it really struck me, because I'd seen this at other banks and I'd seen this around, that there are people that were moving from bank to bank, and they were trading their careers. And then in a number of cases, and this happened subsequently as well, I worked at other banks and alongside star traders, people with huge reputations who had, been senior traders at big banks. And when I worked alongside them, I was just sort of dumbstruck with in some cases, these guys were awful traders. And now it started to make sense why they were moving from bank to bank, sometimes quite regularly. But it wasn't always the case that the well-known people, in fact, a lot of well-known traders, and in terms of well-known, I mean they were well-known in their particular markets, were really poor. And it really struck me that this phrase, that some people are trading their careers, and that's why you see them, that's why you hear about them. And you may look at now, or you may look at the financial media, financial news channels. You may see someone who's, for example, head of an ETF, and you may look at that fund and say, well, that's lost over 60% in the last year. How is she still being interviewed? Why are people still wanting her opinion? And the reality is, she's trading her career. And there's other people in the media as well, fund managers, people who have shows on television who you will be aware of are continually wrong with their views, continually making claims and picking stocks and for years this has gone on. But the thing is that there's a whole presence and persona behind it. They're not trading the markets. In fact, realistically, the P&Ls just doesn't matter. They're trading their careers. As long as they can build value in the brand of their career, then they'll still attract money. If it's if you're managing a fund, as long as you're well known. And there's been a number of examples of fund managers blowing up and then setting up a new fund. And as someone else who's trying to set up a hedge fund and looking for money, it's like, well, how does someone who's just spectacularly failed still able to get good sums of money again? It's because they were successful in trading their careers. And I think it's really important to think about that. When you see people in the media and you see them on the telly, ask yourself, is this person trading the markets or is this person trading their career?